Welcome to the basketball party. I'm Sam Ekstrom here at Locked On Sports Minnesota. A massive Wolves win. Anthony Edwards is furious, and Luka Doncic is avoiding Minneapolis.
This is Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. It's endless Minnesota Timberwolves talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. It's time for the Minnesota basketball party on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
It's Wolves Talk every Wednesday. Welcome into the Minnesota basketball party. I'm Sam Ekstrom. You'll meet the crew in a second. We're so glad you're watching us here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota YouTube channel. Also, catch us on the 24/7 YouTube live stream. Please subscribe. Be part of the fun. Also, hear us on the Locked On Wolves audio feed, where you can hear daily podcasts with Ben Beacon, a panelist not on today's show, but get our audio there as well. Also, find us on the SiriusXM app, Amazon Fire, Roku, lots of ways to watch and listen. On today's show, where we'll be getting into plenty on the number one seed in the West, the Minnesota Timberwolves. But first, our opening tip.
I'm Ron Johnson, former Gopher, former NFL wide receiver, and I'm an avid basketball fan. I'm also from Detroit. So I want to talk about, are the Minnesota Timberwolves kind of like the Detroit Lions this year?
I'm Reggie Wilson, sports director at KARL-11. And contrary to what Sam thinks, the Wolves are a fourth quarter team.
I'm Jack Borman, editor-in-chief at Canis Hoopus and co-host of the Locked On Wolves postcast with my man Luke Inman. I'm going to talk to you a little bit why I think it's encouraging that the Timberwolves stars didn't feel the need to go win that game in the fourth quarter in Oklahoma City.
And again, I'm Sam Ekstrom here at Locked On Sports Minnesota, and the Maverick stars are allergic to Target Center. Show yourself, Luka. Show yourself, Kyrie. I'll rip you later in the show. But let's get into this big Wolves win from Monday. Our guy, Ben Beacon, regrettably not here today, but he was at the game. He texted me his thoughts, so I will relay those during the conversation. But Ron Johnson, Wolves go into OKC, the team that just knocked them off at Target Center. They even the season series 2 apiece with a big fourth quarter finish. That made the road trip, Ron, look a whole lot better. 3-1 versus 2-2 with a nice win to stay number 1 in the West. Not too bad.
Yeah, and I think we all, not all of us, I think some of us picked 3-1. I don't remember what show, whether it was this show or whether it was the round table, but I know we were all kind of saying 3-1. We just weren't sure where that 3-1 was going to come from. And so this is a team that's kind of been that. They've beat the teams they're supposed to beat. Sometimes they could be 4-0, honestly. I mean, if you think about who they lost to, they should be 4-0. But the Timberwolves, the one thing I like most about that win is the fact that they're getting it from different places. One, Mike Conley not being able to play, they were able to still find a way to win. And I think everybody was nervous when Mike Conley went out. And I think the Cat 70 or 60-point game put a sour taste in our mouth. So Mike Conley's absence jumped to the top of the charts. Well, now he's still absent, and they're still finding ways to beat the best teams. And so I think this is going to be a good stretch for them as well without Mike Conley to figure out how they can get through this. You know, it's almost like the Vikings without Justin Jefferson. They were able to find ways to win, find ways to get, some production. And I think this is the same thing now when you look at the Timberwolves without Mike Conley. Now, the other side of it, though, Shea, he gets calls. Anthony Edwards is dead right. You can't touch him. You can't bump him. You can't even breathe on them heavily because they're going to blow the whistle, and then vice versa. Anthony Edwards, now in the game, he played through a lot of the BS. He played through a lot of the hits, the bumps, but after the game, he lost his mind. We'll talk about that, but I'm just glad to see he kept it together, knowing that the refs were not giving him the calls he probably deserves. And so that just shows a little bit of maturity there that everybody thought they lacked.
Reg.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite the huge win. And I think what really kind of sold me on the performance was how they played in the fourth quarter. And, it seemed to be going like a game like, oh man, well, they hung around a little bit, and then, the Thunder just went ahead and did their thing. But it's interesting because looking at this Thunder team, contrary to what Jack believes, they are a very talented team. They got hoopers all over the court. But I think I saw a tweet that was just like, the Thunder is just nothing but filled with AAU. Like it's just like a older AAU team. And sometimes that's just kind of what it feels like. They got a bunch of talent all across the floor, even on the bench. And sometimes it just feels like they're really young. Like they need that Chris Paul, to kind of keep them on track a little bit. They need a little bit more of an adult in the room. But I think what's interesting is Shea always gets what Shea gets. Like he got 37. It was like, all right, he's going to do what he does. But we got some guys. I think I mentioned yesterday, Cat, Rudy, Ant, they combined for 60 points in that win. And it was impressive to me, the clutch shot making that they had down the stretch, but also the good defense that they had down the stretch to kind of keep the Thunder at bay when they were, trying to surge back and try to make a game of it late. They just kind of shut the door on them. And so it was a really impressive win. It just kind of shows, I feel like week to week, there are some blips because this is still a young team and they're still figuring out how to win consistently. But I think the talent of this team continues to show, and week to week, they just seem to have a little bit more improvement to just show like that they're for real this year. And as Ron said, like winning without Mike Conley, like every time he's out, I kind of wince a little bit. I'm like, oh, here we go. I don't know. I'm just not sure. But Conley is out, and they closed down the stretch in the fourth quarter because that was kind of a talking point around the team as well. Is when Conley is out, they seem to kind of implode a little bit in the fourth quarter, and they did what they were supposed to do. It was just a really impressive win against the team Jack Borman has no respect for.
Jack, if you had no respect for the Thunder, was it a good win?
Yeah, I think it's a good win. I mean, I have no respect for what they're saying on Instagram after they beat the Timberwolves last week when Chet Holmgren's saying this is what movies is made of and then scores 4 points and plays like absolute trash. So, I mean, Lou Dort was talking like he was, more than a horrible offensive player and a pretty good defensive player. I mean, he was talking a lot. Okay. At any rate, you can miss me with all that, the IG stuff, but unlike Reggie's Lakers, this was in a really encouraging week for this Timberwolves squad. I think that, I completely agree with just about everything Reggie said, though, in terms of the thing that stuck out to me here was that fourth quarter, just because when you do look at Oklahoma City, you could be in a place like me and still think that Oklahoma City, as it stands right now, isn't going to be a super viable playoff team, and that Sam Presti, their general manager, should really push some chips in and send a message to those guys that he believes in them and can get them some help so they can be viable in the playoffs. But they're fifth this season in the fourth quarter net rating, +5. They're 17-5 at home. And before this game, they were 28-1 when leading going into the fourth quarter. And that was a great stat put out there by Marnie Kellner on Wolves Live after the game. And they're now 28-2 when leading going into the fourth quarter. And both of those losses are now against the Timberwolves. But the Wolves scored 34 points in that fourth quarter, and only 12 of them came from Karl-Anthony Towns and Anthony Edwards, who shot a combined 3 of 7. Everyone else shot 8 of 12. They were 4 of 7 from 3 and had 0 turnovers. When you think about what Jaden McDaniels did, he picked up his 5th foul early in that fourth quarter and had to come out. And then, sat for 5-6 minutes, comes back in, hits that huge go-ahead 3-pointer to pretty much swing the entire momentum and outcome of the game, and then has that huge tip in to go up. I believe it was 6 with about 45 seconds left. You get 7 points from Nickeil Alexander-Walker. You get 5 big ones from Jordan McLaughlin early in the quarter. And then Naz Reid had that huge go-ahead 3, in that middle part of the quarter as well. And what I really, liked is that with so many different guys on the floor, they did a really good job of moving the ball and initiating actions in different ways with different players from all over the floor. It wasn't just Anthony Edwards walking into a Rudy Gobert pick and roll, dancing with the ball for 10, 15 seconds, not even really looking at any of his teammates and just trying to do it all himself, or Karl-Anthony Towns doing the same thing. It was guys getting off the ball early in the shot clock, getting into the offense early, trusting that the ball would come back to them. And that's really, really important. I think that the more that these guys just trust their teammates and trust that, the Timberwolves, besides them, are going to be able to come away, make big shots, take care of the basketball, most importantly, is really important. And I think if they can continue to sustain that moving forward and play unselfishly, and try to, really find a rhythm with some of these lineups. I know that everyone kind of rightly killed Chris Finch on Saturday night for some of the lineups that he put out there. But to start that fourth quarter, I think you have to give him a lot of credit for the group that they put out there with Jordan McLaughlin, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jaden McDaniels, Karl-Anthony Towns, and Rudy Gobert. They were a +9 in a little less than 3 minutes played. So the hope is that you can kind of continue some of that continuity maybe with that lineup at the start of the fourth quarter, given how well they played, and hope that that can kind of at least get fourth quarters off on a little bit of a better start, so you have some more confidence rolling once Anthony Edwards gets back into the game. And who knows, maybe you can win some of those non-Anthony Edwards minutes at the start of the fourth quarter to just kind of make it feel a little bit like an avalanche, like the snowball keeps getting bigger and bigger, as the fourth quarter drags on.
Yeah, I mean, it looks a whole lot better when Nas, the two J-Max are hitting occasional shots. I mean, you've needed a bench lift all year, and when you're getting that, it just helps tremendously. McLaughlin had some huge shots. The three-point shooting, frankly, in the second half was outstanding for the Wolves in that game. And the offense in the fourth quarter did execute. I would still like to see it a few more games in a row just to prove that the pattern has switched, but the defense continues to be the driving force. Oklahoma City gets a junk dunk in the final second to go over the 100 mark. They basically held the West's top offense under 100 points in that game. Tremendous defensive effort against a good offensive Thunder team. Chet disappears, scared of Rudy. Shea was good, but they didn't get killed by the complementary pieces there in Oklahoma City. But coming out of that game, I think the big story was Ant. I mean, I think Ant being furious with the officiating, he ripped them on a hot mic, said they were a cheating bleep refs. We won't say the word on this family show. Ripped them to Bally Sports North, ripped them to ESPN, said they were playing 8-on-5. Reggie, is Edwards justified in his anger toward officials, not just in this game, but overall?
Yeah, it was interesting too because they had a discussion on this on PTI yesterday as well. So he really just kind of made the rounds. I think it's indicative of where Anthony Edwards is in his superstar status right now. That he's making national news for some of the things that he's saying, and so I think that is something that is probably strategic by Ant. Yes, he's going to get slapped with the fine. You can't just go all across all platforms like that, just trashing the refs and expect not to get that fine. Like it's coming. Hopefully we'll kind of see some type of resolution to that here within the next day or so. That would be nice. But I think it's justified. When you're a superstar or a rising superstar, depending on how you want to look at Ant, and you aren't getting the calls, what's going on there? Like we see Cat each and every game. He's going up and down the floor like, foul. That was a foul. He's crying about foul calls every game. We don't really see that from Ant. And I think it was interesting. I think that was it was a little jarring for me, kind of seeing that Ant was kind of, howling so much about the foul calls and lack thereof. But also, if you're seeing on the other side, Shea getting all these foul calls, and you're like, okay, I know Shea's a superstar, starting in the All-Star game, whatever. Shea had 16 free throw attempts, and he made 15 of them. Ant, he's like, whoa, like if Shea's getting a call, can I get a call? Like Ant had 4 free throw attempts. And I think that last one really kind of made him upset on that dunk. He's just like, yo, like they legit grabbed me. Y'all, are we just blinded now? Like, are we not even paying attention to the game? And that's when, we got the cheating refs that he said after that. But like he was going all the way up the court. And they were trying to like stop, like slow-mo was like, all right, okay, come on in. That's okay. That's all right. You all good. That's all good. He's like, no. that was a foul. So that was a lot that he did, and I haven't been used to seeing that from Ant, but I think it's justified, and I also think that it's a little bit of playing the game a little bit as well. Just kind of, like, hey, start paying attention when I'm out there on the floor. I'm gonna need to start getting some of these calls too.
Jack.
Yeah, I wonder if Ant's going to get fined. I think normally we see these fines come out the next day, but he hasn't been fined yet. It's been, a day and a half now since that game. But yeah, I mean, I just think that it's kind of like the case of LeBron here, where LeBron is just a cyborg. He's 6'8", he's 255 pounds, he's all muscle, and LeBron doesn't really flop. I mean, relative to what some of his peers do. When you see Joel Embiid at 7 feet, 7'1", 290, 300 pounds, whatever he is, just flopping around out there like a fish. And someone like LeBron or someone like Anthony Edwards, who are just, physical freaks and how strong and athletic they are, not flopping around. I think that because they don't embellish that contact and they don't try to fall down and try to flail their arms and all this other stuff, that they aren't getting these foul calls. And I think that it probably makes those guys harder to officiate, and that, because they aren't reacting to contact in the same way that some of these smaller guards are, it's just, I guess, tougher for them to get whistles. And I think it's really unfortunate that you have that being such an insanely strong and quick and explosive athlete is at your detriment when it comes to drawing fouls, when those are the types of players that should be drawing fouls at the highest rate, because they're the ones that are more likely driving into the paint, drawing contact, posting guys up, earning trips to the free throw line, rather than, like what Reggie said, playing the game. And, it's really unfortunate that, playing the game and embellishing and grifting and all this stuff is now being rewarded. And so you hope that, the NBA works to kind of enact some of that playoff officiating in the regular season. I mean, it's no surprise that Joel Embiid's playoff numbers are significantly worse than his numbers in the regular season, because refs stop rewarding all that stuff at the same level that they do in the regular season. And there's zero reason to me why the game can't be officiated, more closely to how it's officiated in the playoffs during the regular season. And so, Chris Finch talked about it a little bit in some pregame, discussions he had with media members earlier in the season, saying that he thought that the league, for the most part, in the first, 4 or 6 weeks of the season, did a good job of kind of getting rid of some of that, but that they've totally backslided on that now, and it's starting to get out of control again. And I good on Anthony Edwards for saying what he said, especially after a win. He's got every right to be frustrated, and Reggie nailed it. She has 16 free throws. That is the difference between Anthony Edwards being in this kind of second class of superstar scorers in this 25, 26, 27 points per game range, versus being in that Shea or Luka range where he's scoring 32, 33, 34 points per game, 5-6 free throw. That could be the difference right there. And so it'll be really interesting to see how that changes with these comments. If refs kind of, now just kind of blackball him even more with getting calls, or what the deal is. But he certainly has earned more trips to the line than what he's gotten in the whole season.
Ron, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to say, I like the way Jack finished that. That's the dangerous line you play with grown men that have emotions in these referees. They can literally just come together and say, you know what, screw Anthony Edwards. Like, you want to call us out? All right, good luck with the rest of the season. And so he has to be very careful in how he words it. The next time he gets interviewed, maybe apologize and say, hey, my emotions were running high. I just felt like, the last couple of games against OKC, like, he has to come up with a narrative that doesn't make these refs, these grown men, who have to go home to their wives and say, and their wives are like, babe, look at this. How did you not see this? His hands are all over his arms. Everybody posted the pictures. Everybody saw it. I think the LeBron James reference is dead on. Anthony Edwards on that dunk on Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. He absolutely did not move an inch. He ran through that arm like he was a little kid trying to tackle his big brother that plays in the NFL. I mean, it's like a 7-year-old trying to tackle Christian McCaffrey. He just ran through, no problem, dunked it, didn't change. When guys get calls, and that's the thing in the NBA, they flop one arm maybe and still dunk it. They kind of throw their head back and they do all this crap to like make you think they got hit. So the refs just automatically, foul. He's not doing that. He's playing through contact because he's like, look, you can foul me, but I still want the bucket. And that's why he has to be careful. At the end of the day, we're right. We haven't seen a fine. Maybe the NBA realizes all right, y'all did miss this one. He did call y'all out. Let's call it even and break. I think that's going to be key for this down the stretch. The fact that there was only 19 fouls to the Timberwolves and 17 fouls for the Thunder, there were at least 5 or 6 calls that got missed. Mike Conley maybe on picks when they try to hedge it. Maybe he gets some of the calls because he does do the head back thing when the guy tries to hedge him. But a lot of the other guys don't do, one, they're not savvy enough to do it. They don't do it great. Steph Curry is one of the best at that. When he gets the pick, he automatically throws his head back and keeps trying to dribble through and they blow the whistle. LeBron doesn't do it. Anthony Edwards doesn't do it. Paul George, he wasn't doing it. He's kind of doing it now, but that's the thing. Like James Harden, he's going to throw that head back every time and get that extra call. That's why he gets so many free throws. Not saying Anthony Edwards needs to change his game, but he has to be careful because these refs can be very petty down the stretch.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Ben Beacon was texting me. I wanted to share his thoughts. He called it Shaq syndrome, the having too much strength, where the bumps don't affect you as much. Like Shea, for instance, he's a lot slighter of frame than Edwards. Got the 16 free throws in that game. And Ben pointed out to me they had the same number of shots in the paint, and Edwards got 4 times fewer free throws in the game than Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So that's a pretty bad discrepancy. I do look at the overall numbers for the year, free throw attempts per game. Edwards is 15th, so it's not like he's never getting a call. What I would really like to see, maybe Jack or somebody knows where this data is located. I want to see free throw attempts per drive or fouls drawn per drive. That would be the really telling number for me to see like how much he's getting free throw attempts per slashes to the rim, because when he is relentless, he gets to the rim very easily. And there are so many times where he gets in a crowd and turns the ball over. Mm-hmm. And in a lot of those moments, you know, it's kind of like the last play against the Hornets last week where Cat goes into a crowd. Is he hacked? Is he bumped? Probably. Was it a well-advised drive? No, it maybe wasn't. There was probably an open man on the perimeter. So I think there's a little bit of give and take there with Ant. We'll see tonight. We'll see if he gets 20 whistles against the Mavericks or not.
Do you want them now? Do you want those drive numbers now? I've got them right.
I would love them. Thank you. Give them to me.
So Shai Gilgeous-Alexander leads the NBA in drives per game at 23.2. He leads the NBA in free throw attempts as a result of those drives at 4.5. Meanwhile, Anthony Edwards drives 14 times per game, which is about 20th in the NBA, but does draw 3.4 fouls a game, which I believe here is 6th in the NBA. But I mean, if you're looking at surely the rate at which he's drawing fouls, shooting fouls on the drive, it is higher than SGA. It's just, I think that number should still be a lot higher considering, how much he does get hacked.
Interesting numbers, though. You got to let me know where you get these numbers. I am still learning my NBA data.
NBA stats.
NBA does a good job with that. Let's talk about Mike Conley's absence. Have the Wolves figured out how to win without him? Next on the Minnesota Basketball Party. Today's show brought to you by eBay Motors. Our partners there have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft, scouring the waiver wire every week, we're going to provide you players that are guaranteed to fit your roster. So let's see who Josh has picked out for this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. I'm eyeing up Jared Vanderbilt because I love Vando. He's a former Timberwolf, and I would love to see him winning right now, but as Reggie can attest, he's not with the Los Angeles Lakers. But maybe you can win by riding Jared Vanderbilt's coattails in fantasy basketball, because those Lakers lineups have been looking a lot better with Jared in them, and he has been a lot more productive lately in his last 7 games, averaging 10.6 points per game. That's very un-Vando-like. That's a pretty big number. 5 rebounds per game, 2.4 stocks per game in almost 24 minutes. Maybe Darvin Ham gets fired 1 hour from now, and the new coach plays Vando a ton. You could also take that gamble as well, but ride Vando's coattails. That's my fantasy suggestion of the week, and Josh Lloyd likes that one as well. Josh Lloyd is going to help you win your fantasy championship, and eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit, just like your vehicle. Over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack, bumpers, whatever your car needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride for the first time, every time, or your money back. And at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Mike Conley has missed a number of games of late. I don't think we've gotten a for sure indication on whether he plays against Dallas tonight. Dallas is resting everybody. It wouldn't surprise me if Conley takes tonight off as well. But let's go to Jack first. Have the Wolves figured out what to do when Mike Conley's not on the floor? Because there's been a lot of memes. Like I posted the John Travolta meme of him like looking around. That's the Wolves in the fourth quarter when Mike Conley's not on the floor, at least of late. And some of the on-off numbers like Conley versus Nah, I think the offense is something like 7 points worse and the defense is 2 points worse. So like there are tangible numbers that reflect that the Wolves are worse without Mike Conley. Did Monday's performance, Jack, change that a little bit in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it did, but it didn't really have a whole lot to do necessarily with either of those two players, in the sense that I think when your two stars just move the basketball more, it makes the need to have a point guard that gets everyone organized, less apparent, I guess, or, less glaring of a need, or, oh my God, we really need this guy out there. I think, but that, I mean, I still think Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Mike Conley have been terrific. I mean, you could make a real argument that Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been this team's most important defender, not named Rudy Gobert this season. Was a big part in the Wolves giving up just 81 points in the last 41 and a half minutes of that game in OKC. But Nickeil's been awesome as a spot starter, especially in the last 4 games that he started. He's scored 12 points per game on 50% shooting, 50% from 3, has an assist to turnover ratio north of 5, and is averaging almost 2 stocks a game. And so when you're getting that from your starting point guard, I think you'll take that, all day long, especially when you consider what numbers Mike Conley is giving you is somewhat similar to that. But Jordan McLaughlin too has been really good in this elevated role as kind of that backup point guard that Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been playing for the majority of the season. I think for him to be shooting 5 of 11 from 3 since really entering the rotation, 9 or 10 games ago, while maintaining an assist to turnover ratio of 2, which is really bad for McLaughlin, but is really good for anybody else in the Wolves, has been, an overwhelming positive. And the thing that I've really appreciated about Jordan McLaughlin is, key bench lineups the last 10 games have all been really good with McLaughlin out there. I mean, you look at lineups that are kind of end of the first quarter, end of the third quarter lineups with J-Mac, Ant, and Nas is plus 27 in 24 minutes. J-Mac, Nah, Slow-Mo is plus 16 in 29 minutes at kind of the beginning of the second quarter. And then that bridge first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter, fourth quarter lineup that they've had now, this nucleus of 3 guys of J-Mac, Nickeil, and Karl, is plus 15 in 40 minutes. And so when you get, kind of those 3-man lineup combos that you're going to see at these similar parts of the game, and Jordan McLaughlin is really doing a great job of getting the ball moving while also being really competitive on the ball defensively. It's exactly what you want from a backup point guard who's made a ton of energy plays for them this season. And so I don't expect to see Mike Conley play tonight. And I think the good news is that with the play that they've gotten from these two guys, I don't necessarily think that they have to rush Mike Conley back, which is obviously a huge luxury. And then we'll see what happens at the trade deadline if the Timberwolves do decide to address the backcourt guard rotation even further with a buyout guy or making a trade for someone that will hopefully allow Mike Conley to take as many games off as he needs in between now and the playoffs.
Ron.
Yeah, I mean, so with Mike Conley, when you think about what you're seeing now, I think these are going to be the games that matter the most. Like being able to get this. I wish Kyrie would play because I would like to see Dallas at full strength versus a Wolves team at full strength without Mike Conley, just to see, again, where they stack up. How can they handle Kyrie? How can they facilitate the ball when you have a guy like Luka who could drop 60 on your head at any moment? I do like what they're doing. I would honestly, and this is maybe just, I don't know, thinking too much into it, I would rather see Anthony Edwards be the point guard. I would rather see Anthony Edwards bring the ball up at least, get it started, kind of like the Warriors use Draymond Green. Have your most confident, consistent person bring the ball up that you know is not going to throw a long ball for no reason. He's not going to come up and get the wrong set started. Anthony Edwards can still play off the ball, but bring it up. See what, if it's there, you go now right away. You be the driver, be the creator. If it's not there, then get into the offensive set, whether it's you running the 2-man with karl-anthony Towns, you running the 2-man with Rudy Gobert. I would really like to see Anthony Edwards become a little ball dominant in this offense while Mike Conley is out. I think the other guards are fine. I also wouldn't mind seeing a truly gigantic lineup where you put Shlomo at the 2. You put Anthony Edwards at the 1. Now you have Nas, Rudy Gobert, and karl-anthony Towns on the floor, and just go big and see how teams handle that, because somewhere in that group of 5, there's got to be a mismatch. And I think Shlomo is a really good decision maker. Like, he doesn't make, well, he's thinking too slow to make bad decisions, but he's not making bad decisions. And so I would also like to see that happen. I do like the team. I think they were fine against OKC without Conley. Again, to get that sour taste out of our mouth of that 70-point attempt, that to me, and I think I brought this up to Sam. I just wondered, even in that grouping of all these guys scoring 70, because every publication is now talking about it. There's no defense in the NBA anymore. This is gross. How many guys are able to score 70? Is it that? Or all these guys trying to do it because that was the week Kobe scored 81? And I think that's what we're all forgetting. That was the week where Kobe scored 81. I think it was a tribute to Kobe for a lot of these guys. It was like an unspoken word of, I'm going to go for mine, and give a shout out to Kobe. I'm going to go for mine. And I think a lot of media members miss that. Some people bought it up, but a lot of people, they bought it like, oh, this is the last time somebody's did it since Kobe scored 81 in 2006, I think. People forgot, I think a lot of guys were really just doing it to pay tribute to Kobe as well. And, I think that kind of fell by the wayside. But maybe in the All-Star game, maybe some of these interviews, we'll get to hear more about that. But at the end of the day, I'd love to see Anthony Edwards be a ball-dominant guy while Conley's out.
I think it's encouraging, especially with a big win like that against the Thunder. And look, I got nothing but love for Nah. I think, slow-mo has kind of taken a step back from the slow-mo that we have, been accustomed to seeing. Like, he's an even slower slow-mo. I don't know if that's like a thing, like, but it feels like it's a thing. And like, God love him, like, all the commentary on Twitter is like, Finch is just, he has to be saved from himself when it comes to playing slow-mo, because like, he's not as efficient of a player as he's been in years past. But like, Finchy loves him for what he can do on the court. He's just not doing those things that he loves about him on a consistent basis. And so I love when they put Nah in the starting lineup. 35 minutes, he's 4-12 from the field, 12 points, nothing to really sneeze at, but like, you got 2 boards from him, 3 assists, 2 steals. Like, he's just a solid guy. They were plus 10 when he was on the court. And so I just think that he's not going to give you what Mike Conley gives, obviously, but I think he got that extension for a reason, because he is an effective player out there, and I like what he brings. And I think, it's not what Mike Conley does, but it does allow the Wolves to just still kind of get into their stuff and do what they have to do in Conley's absence.
I'll just add that if you think back a year ago when the Wolves acquired Conley, and remember the first few Conley games were really lackadaisical. It didn't seem like there was a lot of meat on the bone there. Aging point guard, and the team wasn't very, very exciting. And we were having the conversations legitimately. We were saying, that Conley contract, that's a nice expiring deal that you could flip at the deadline next year. Can you imagine trading Mike Conley at this point? He's like one of the most, valuable Timberwolves. We're talking about extending Mike Conley instead of trading Mike Conley. I can't wait to get him back. The Wolves have a soft stretch here. Hopefully he gets all the rest he needs to get right, because those hamstrings can be tricky. When we return, Ron Johnson's going to tell us why the Timberwolves are the Detroit Lions. That's next on the Minnesota Basketball Party. Today we are brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. It's the new year, still January. You might be hiring because it's Q1 of 2024. You're a small business owner. You're probably doing a lot. Maybe you're doing social media, website design and maintenance, and you're running around and you're trying to hire people as well, and that's a lot. Well, LinkedIn Jobs is going to help you with that, because when you post on LinkedIn Jobs, they have the tools to help you find the right professionals quickly and for free. It's not just another job board, because LinkedIn has a billion, literally billion with a B, professionals in their vast network. So when you use LinkedIn Jobs, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. They're rated #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors, because they know that you're doing a lot as a small business owner, and they have the tools to help you out. It's intuitive, quick, and easy with LinkedIn Jobs. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. The Detroit Lions are in the sports news cycle. They lose a heartbreaker in NFC Championship game. Their first big football game in 33 years. Are the Lions the Timberwolves? Like, are the Timberwolves? Ron and I talked about this, and I'm already worried. Are the Timberwolves going to live the Lions experience only to get their hearts broken in the conference championship like Detroit did? Ron, talk me off the ledge, or maybe you think that's exactly how it's going to go down.
Yeah, so I was telling you, Sam, I woke up after that Lions loss. I licked my wounds. I moved on. I said, you know what? It's time for Christian McCaffrey now to end this whole Taylor Swift fairy tale. But as I thought about the Timberwolves, I was like, you know what? I feel like they're giving the city hope. And so when I say, are the Timberwolves the Lions? One, the Lions gave Detroit hope. They gave the fans hope. You saw social media buzzing. Normally it was buzzing because they hated Matthew Stafford. They hated how the Lions did Barry Sanders or Calvin Johnson, where the Timberwolves people hated how they did KG. They used to hate how they didn't draft Curry. That's all we hear about is every time Curry went off, we could have had him. Every time Clay did something, we could have had him. Every time Draymond punched somebody in the face, we could have had that here in Minnesota. We could have had an absolute thug in Minnesota, and we didn't want that. We didn't draft that. We didn't go after that type of team because allegedly Steph Curry couldn't golf in Minnesota. And so when you think about all of that, now they're winning. Now they're the #1 seed. Now the lowest I think they'll be is 4. I don't see them dropping, like having an absolute meltdown unless all kinds of injuries happen. I don't see it happening. So if they're going to be in seeds 1 through 4, because it's a 1-game stretch right now for those 4 teams, they're going to host a playoff series. They most likely, they beat OKC, they beat the Nuggets, they played the Celtics close. They are one of the best teams in the NBA, not just the West. But I just wonder, are they going to get to the Western Conference Finals? Everybody's going to be excited that they're going to the NBA Finals finally, and is the Timberwolves going to bring us a championship? Because if they make it, I feel like they win it. Like, I feel like in 7 games, I don't think the Celtics or the Sixers can beat them in 7. But are they going to let us down in the Western Conference Finals and have like 4 fourth quarter meltdowns where they go into the fourth quarter and we're all like super excited and then they melt down? And you know what that reminds me of? OKC, Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Westbrook. They had the Warriors by the neck and they folded in the end. And then Kevin Durant leaves and goes to the Warriors. So I just hope that doesn't happen where all of a sudden that happens here and then karl-Anthony Towns goes and joins the Nuggets or something. But I just wonder, like, the Timberwolves felt a little bit Detroitish to me. But right now, it's the hope phase. I'm not going to jump ahead to the West, but they are giving the city hope.
I wonder if there's like a coaching decision Finch can make that would be equal to Dan Campbell going forward on 4th downs. Like, is there an equivalent?
Leaving Anthony Edwards in the game with 5 fouls in like the 3rd quarter or something.
There you go. There you go. Reg, your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't want to compare the 2 teams because it ends in heartbreak. It ends in losing a multiple touchdown lead in the NFC Championship game. And so it's like, is that the Wolves' future? Like, are they gonna be up like 3-1 in the Western Conference Finals and then somehow lose it and end up going home? Like, I don't want that for Timberwolves fans. I think Minnesota sports fans are scarred enough. So I'll stay away from the Lions and Wolves comparisons. But I will say, I think it's tough to compare because, you know, the Lions went 9-8 last year. They didn't make the playoffs. The Wolves have been a playoff team the last couple seasons. And so, you know, if they are the Lions, like, you would think that they're the Lions a couple years ago or last year, like, and this is the year that people are expecting the Lions to have next season. I don't know. It's all confusing. I don't know.
Jack.
I'll let these two guys cook with the Lions comparison. I think that the best way I can compare them is that, you know, the NFC was wide open this year. The Western Conference in the NBA is wide open this year. The pathway is certainly there for, you know, a team that was projected to be kind of middle of the pack in the conference, middle of the pack in the NFC, Western Conference of the NBA, to kind of make a run and be one of the last two teams in the conference standing. So I certainly think in that capacity, the two certainly have some similarities. And obviously, you know, the Wolves have something that, or have a chance to do something that has been done here for a long time, kind of like the Lions did. So there are certainly some parallels there.
Would Aisha Curry be like Taylor Swift?
I mean, I don't see Taylor Swift saying that NFL games are rigged and that she saw it live in person with her own two eyes. So,
I was trying to find like an NBA girlfriend
or
wife that would be, you know, there's nobody in the NBA that has a Taylor Swift.
Like a Kelly Stafford or something.
Yeah, she could be.
This is where the comparison is eerie. So the Timberwolves began in 1989. Since then, winning percentage of .407. They have one series win in those 34 seasons. The Lions, in the same amount of time, winning percentage .408. 0.1 better than the Timberwolves, and they too have one playoff win. So there's your similarity right there. I have always felt like the Detroit Lions fans kind of kept the passion, kept the faith about their team. I think there's just a lot of fervor for football in Detroit. I would say that the Timberwolves fans may or may not have given up on this franchise a time or two along the way. They haven't always been there. They've been hibernating. They've been asleep. This is a sleeping giant of a fan base. Now you see them. You get the slightest glimpse of success, and they all come out of the woodwork. Like, I think there's a lot of passion here. It just wasn't always on display. But I think there are more similarities than differences for sure in those fan bases. Detroit's just got a lot of history, right? The Timberwolves don't have a lot of history going back 90 years. But in closing today, we do what we always do. We predict the week. Here's what the Timberwolves have ahead. Mavs at home with no Luka and no Kyrie. Let's go, guys. Come on. Give the Target Center fans just a glimpse of you. That's twice this year that you've ditched, and I don't think you're coming back this year. So that stinks. And people are paying Luka prices to get in the building to not see Luka. That is just a gigantic bummer. Why am I upset because I'm going to the game tonight? No, maybe, perhaps.
You should hold up a sign and say, like, I drove 25,000 miles to see Luka Doncic. You probably end up on ESPN.
I just have like tear stains, like makeup on my
there's
feet.
a kid. Have you seen that one kid? They found out he was a fraud. He's gone to like 3 different games with the same sign.
Yeah.
He keeps saying he's traveled a distance to see a certain player, and then they keep giving him stuff, and then somebody called him out on social media. Like, how's this kid keep coming from Italy every month?
Smart kid. What a racket. So it's Mavs tonight. Mavs aren't playing anybody. Magic at home, who are fading fast. The Rockets are fading. And then they go on the road to face the haphazard Chicago Bulls. So that there is not really a daunting game in that stretch. Reggie, is this a 4-0 week for the Wolves?
I hesitate to say because it feels like a kiss of death, but, you know, yeah, I'm going to give it to him. 4-0. I think
Right.
Ant is finally going to get some foul calls, and they're going to play inspired, really try to take the reins here in the West, and they'll go 4-0.
Jack.
Yeah, I think they're going to go 4-0 as well. Obviously, we touched on who the Mavs don't have tonight. The Wolves have done really, really well against teams that don't space the floor, don't shoot very well. The Magic certainly fall in that category. The Bulls also fall in that category. I think that those will be two pretty easy wins. And then against the Rockets, right? I mean, they won by 27 earlier this year in Houston. They scored 60 points in the paint, held them to 40% shooting, and the Rockets just don't have any type of interior defense whatsoever. So I think this should be a pretty easy breezy 4-0. Knock on wood.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't see the loss, but the Wolves have also given us a little reason to doubt them in some of these games against lesser opponents. They had a streak of 15 or 16 in a row, beating the lottery teams, and now they've lost several. I did have one other note, though. They're 9-7 now against the top 8 in the West, which is a pretty good mark. I'm going to go 3-1. I think there's one slip up. Don't know which one. I was told last time by you guys the Magic are actually pretty good, so maybe it's the Magic at home. But
I'm going 4-0. But the reason it's weird, all these teams are at 22 to 26 wins, like every single team they're playing. So it's just a weird week of like being lulled to sleep by the Mavs and then having to play these other teams. But this should be a 4-0 week. Like, do it without Conley, even if he doesn't play the whole week. Do it without Conley. Show that you guys are the best in the West. Put some distance, or not distance, but at least hold on to one. Because I don't think the Nuggets or OKC are going to have a bad week.
And one other note, too, if the Timberwolves go 2-0 in their first two games, Chris Finch and his staff will coach the NBA Western All-Stars at the All-Star game in Indianapolis.
And also, Sam, you didn't you strategically didn't bring up that at Milwaukee in that next week stretch.
That's next week's show, Reggie. That's next week's
show.
Okay,
I just thought it was interesting. You're like 4-0, but they play another game 2 days later after that fourth game against Doc Rivers and the Giannis Antetokounmpos.
They're going to be overtired from playing defense. He's going to have them so tired from playing defense so much.
That's a great tease, Reggie, because next week on this show we will talk Timberwolves Bucks and Timberwolves Clippers. Big week ahead next week. See if the Wolves can build some momentum. Maybe get on a little 5-game winning streak going.
That's why you rest Conley for that week. This stretch, you rest him even more. Get him back healthy for the Bucks game.
I like that idea. It's the Minnesota Basketball Party. Wolves Talk every Wednesday. Hear us on audio, Locked On Wolves feed, or subscribe here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. Get us on video. Find Ron here on Locked On Sports Minnesota. He does the Ron Johnson Show on Tuesdays, Minnesota Football Party Mondays and Thursdays, Roundtable on Fridays. Reggie Wilson, KARE 11 Sports Director and Anchor. Jack Borman, Canis Hoopus. I'm Sam Ekstrom. Thanks a lot for watching and listening. Talk to you next week.